3rd, 2025. Scott, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Chris?
Here.
Gus?
Here.
Claire?
Here.
Kimberly? Kevin?
Here.
I'm here. And Connie is not here.
Thank you. We planned this, we wrote this agenda out on Friday. At that time, we planned to have a agenda item honoring Lisa Ketchum. She was aware of that. She knew what we were doing. She was planning to be here. On Sunday, she died. So after talking with county council and with other people, we are going to revise the agenda a little bit. We had planned an agenda for a project honoring Lisa Ketchum. In light of her death, I am pulling that item from the agenda for now and would instead observe a moment of silence in her memory at the conclusion of reading the letter that we intended to present to her tonight. I will also ask that we adjourn tonight in her memory. I know that there will be other occasions for our gratitude, expressing our gratitude and our memories, but the MCC will be doing it this way for tonight, so the meeting does not get overwhelmed with personal expressions better reserved for other venues. So if you could put the picture up, I'm going to read the letter that we were sending her, which she was aware of, and which we'll be sending on to her family. In appreciation for her leadership, dedication, and unwavering service to our community, the Midcoast Community Council presents this letter of recognition on the 23rd day of April, 2025, honoring community leader and San Mateo County Planning Commissioner Lisa Ketchum. Dear Lisa, the Midcoast Community Council, former council members, and members of the community hereby express our heartfelt and sincere appreciation for your many years of commitment and dedicated service to the residents of the unincorporated Midcoast. You are a valued volunteer, public servant, neighbor, and friend. Your work has ensured that the MCC continues to be an effective and respected representative of the people who reside on the Midcoast by your example and by mentoring many council members. You created and have maintained our website as a resource for community and governance issues on the Midcoast. We also recognize and value your representation on San Mateo County Planning Commission, where you have been and continue to be a balanced and knowledgeable voice. The community of Pillar Ridge remains a safe and affordable home for over 100 families as a result of your work to establish rent control and your success in eliminating dangerous neighboring propane storage. We are grateful for your continued efforts to care for our parks and our communities. Your stewardship and hands-on work as a volunteer in this capacity has made a difference in so many ways, including keeping county parks accountable for good stewardship practices, pursuing removal of invasive species, and preserving sensitive coastside habitats. You almost single-handedly restored a substantial area of coastal prairie through removal of non-native plants and keeping the native plants and ecology healthy. Through all your efforts, you strive to use every circumstance as a teaching moment, generously giving of your time to broaden the perspective, skills, and knowledge of others, encouraging and enabling everyone you work with, including all those who have served on the council, to become better community leaders. To recognize your service and dedication, the MCC will work with county parks to ensure that the coastal prairie habitat at the south end of Pillar Point Bluff be officially designated and maintained as coastal prairie. We will also coordinate volunteers to help maintain it as coastal prairie. Thank you, Lisa, for all the hours you've given and the efforts you've made to make our community, our county, and the world a better place. We are eternally grateful. I'll just ask for a moment of silence. Okay, we'll move on to the regular agenda. Marisol, you're here from the county's office. Do you have a report for us?
I'm here. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Yes, here are my announcements for tonight. I wanted to announce that Supervisor Mueller sought out to study the lessons from Southern California and to assess our preparedness. And in order to do that better, he and Supervisor Spear have visited the Marin Fire District to learn about their wildfire prevention authority. So they just happened to take that trip. My other announcement is that to help with more of this preparation, there will be an event titled Don't Be Scared, Be Prepared, which is the theme of the Be Wildfire Safe and Ready. It's scheduled to take place on Saturday, April 26th at the San Mateo County Event Center. And I'll provide a link in the chat so that you have the details for that event this weekend. Also, our office wrote a letter to Director Tavares of Caltrans in support of the transfer of the Martini Creek Devil's Slide bypass right-of-way. A copy of the resolution that was previously signed by the former Board of Supervisors from 2016 was provided. And so copies were also provided to Chris Chance, our legislative contact, Senator Becker's office, and Assembly Member Mark Berman's office. And lastly, I wanted to inform you, just as an announcement, that Supervisor Mueller is open to using the COSIDE office to hold a memorial for Lisa Ketchum. May she rest in peace. That is all I have for all of you.
Are there any questions for Marisol?
There's an echo, Claire.
Yeah, I know, that's me. Yeah. No questions for Marisol?
Greg's got his hand up.
Oh, Greg, go ahead.
Marisol, thanks for that update and for Supervisor Mueller's action. I'm on the steering committee of Red Alert Montero Moss Beach, which is concerned with that bypass and Caltrans's work. Can I get a copy of that letter to pass on and any supporting documents that are relevant? You have my email address?
Yes.
Of course.
And
Okay.
yeah, and I also wanted to thank you, Greg, for having previously provided the supporting documents that you had, just to have a little bit more of history about it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Marisol? Is there anybody else from any other government body here to make a report? Sid?
Sorry, Claire, when Sid is done, I actually have one more point that I forgot to
Why don't you
mention.
go ahead, Marisol?
Oh, thank you, Sid. The other thing that I forgot to mention was that Supervisor Mueller has been meeting, has already met with some of the Seal Cove residents and is continuing to meet with some of the residents who have reached out. So that is my update on that end.
So first of all, I wanted to say my condolences about the loss of our community member, Lisa Ketchum.
We're trying not to make comments on that tonight, just a moment of silence and adjourning.
Fine, but I still wanted to make my thing known because she came to the Montero Water and Sanitary District on behalf of Pillar Ridge. And that's kind of when it leaked out that she wasn't going to be with us much longer. So I'm trying to, now that I'm the elected person for that particular district, I'm trying to work to find out more about what we can do to help benefit the people who live at Pillar Ridge, because there's been issues with their trash receptacles, and also they are not allowed to vote in Prop 218 notices. So I reached out to Ray to see if I can find out more about the purpose of that. Apparently, Pillar Ridge is a one single owner property, even though there's 227 homeowners in there. So, they're being disadvantaged by the fact that they're treated like they're renters or something, and they're actually homeowners. So also, I did attend the fire board meeting this evening at 4, and they talked a little bit about the Caltrans bypass and the need for a water tender. So I'm hoping, that they'll be able to get one, because apparently Red Alert was told that Caltrans was there this past week, cutting down some of the fuel load, but nobody saw them anywhere. So it was either a brush off or a miscommunication or something. And meanwhile, that is just so full of brush that could go up like a tinder box. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that report from the Montero Water and Sewer District. Is there anybody else from any other government districts that has a report? If not, we can entertain public comments on anything other than the passing of Lisa Ketchum and the stormwater report and the legislative update. Do I see any hands up? Yes, I do.
Question, why aren't we able to comment on Lisa?
Because we've decided that this is not the forum that we want to keep the focus on her and not on people's memories. There will be another opportunity as Marisol just mentioned for the community to get together and remember her in a more formal way. We're still kind of in shock.
I think with this being on the agenda and with that letter being on the agenda, I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, but that's not what we're going to do.
Yeah, I
I understand. I understand.
Ramrod this, but
Before you arrived, Claire actually read a letter that we were going to give to Lisa and she made an announcement. So you missed that part.
no, I heard the letter being read.
Okay.
I saw that it was a regular agenda item,
And it was pulled. That's the part you missed tonight.
but then a pulled agenda item would usually go to the end of the meeting. Right?
I went, no, that's for consent agenda items. I talked to the county council. We decided this is the way to do it. I know nobody's happy about anything. It's fine. I hear you.
It's weird.
Okay, and no other public comments? The consent agenda then, what's on the consent agenda tonight is the minutes of April 9th. We have a motion to approve them.
Motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Ready for roll? Okay, Chris,
Yes.
Gus,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes,
Amber, Kevin,
Yes.
I'm a yes. And so 6 out of 7, we approve those minutes.
was there, oh, there was nobody against it.
Connie's not here.
Okay,
She did say she communicated that to you, right? She texted me and said she was in DC and wasn't gonna be able to.
yes, I know, but I just was confused by the 6 out of 7.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we move on to the stormwater report. Would you mind putting up that letter? Last week, we heard the final report from Greg about the report, the stormwater report. And we opened the floor to comments from the public, of which we heard several. They were all generally positive. When we reserved any action or any conversation on the report by the council until tonight. I don't know how many people have had a chance to read the proposed cover letter. Do you want it read out loud now? Because it does take a little bit of a different focus from what we've taken before.
Please.
Please, okay. You can follow along, it's on the screen. Dear Supervisor Mueller, the Midcoast Community Council is pleased to share this stormwater report with our county government for review and implementation. The report highlights critical stormwater issues on the Midcoast, proposes some specific solutions, and suggests a path for addressing those issues in the short and long term. This report follows in the tradition of other thought pieces the MCC has shared with the county and local decision makers in response to concerns and needs raised by the constituents of the unincorporated Midcoast. Notably, we have also sent you reports and recommendations on telecommunications and on lighting. Actions on both issues are ongoing and pending. The author of the former MCC council member, Greg Diegues, presents an extensive overview and a deep dive into what residents are currently experiencing during more frequent, stronger storms and offers potential solutions to address those issues. While it began as the product of one person, It contains input from dozens of coastal residents and government and scientific authorities. It has also been reviewed by local relevant agencies and their input has been included. The appendices contain further data and information about how input for the study was obtained and managed. The MCC recommends that the areas within the unincorporated Midcoast that are featured in this report be prioritized for action to address the issues mentioned, some of which have increased in urgency since the report was initially drafted. One such area is Seal Cove and Moss Beach, where emergency measures had to be taken recently to address damage to water and sewer infrastructure caused by land movement and erosion. The specific sections are noted here: 2nd Street in Montero, Quarry Park, State Road 1, Moss Beach, and Seal Cove. While Mr. Dieguez's stormwater report is somewhat wider in scope than the unincorporated Midcoast, we believe that the general direction of these policy recommendations is sound, and we encourage San Mateo County to work to create a comprehensive and environmentally sustainable stormwater plan for the coast side. Although not everyone may agree with all points in this report, the overall focus on the evident stormwater problems our community is experiencing provides a fertile opportunity for county action. So in drafting this letter, I was thinking, if we go back and try to redo the stormwater report, it's like quagmire. We will not get anywhere, at least not very far. And it's already being circulated. It's already being read by several parts of the county who are very interested in it. And it's, I think, a good report. And I would like to find a way to send it more broadly to county government and to other related agencies with a letter and let them work on it. So that's my introduction. And I don't, maybe you have something you'd like to say. I don't know.
Me? I mean, I guess just the high level is that I absolutely think we should send this report to the county broadly. I also think it's an excellent report. I think it very fairly and comprehensively reflects the spirit and sentiment of the community and the challenges that we face here. And you know, the county needs to know they're not out here, they're over on the other side of the hill. This helps them understand what the issues are clearly so that they can take action. When we get to the point, are we going to do edits to the letter? There's like one tiny tweak I would suggest, but like
maybe we should move that the letter be considered, then we should make their tweaks.
Okay.
So you would like comments on the letter?
I would like comments on, I would like somebody to move that we approve the letter so that we can talk about it.
I move that we approve this letter.
Second.
Okay, and then you guys can take it where you want. I think maybe I'll go around the table so it's not like just a free for all.
Okay.
And then we can try to keep your comments within like a 3-minute frame, and then we can go back and discuss what else came up, if that's all right. So I'd like to have edits to the letter. I would like somebody who totally disagrees with the entire approach, whatever you want to say. Let's start with Scott.
Okay, so I think the letter's awesome. The second paragraph I don't love, but it would not stop me from voting yes on this. The stormwater report is comprehensive, and I think it's amazing that a private individual did this kind of work to identify it. And I'm prepared to send it off to any organization you think that could act upon it.
Could you explain why you don't like the second paragraph?
The second paragraph is also what my tweak is.
So it talks about other things besides the stormwater report. That's we have also sent you reports,
Did you ever
and
do it?
recommendations on telecommunication and other stuff. I don't need that. Like I said, it's not gonna stop me from voting yes, but I would strike that and just say focus on stormwater.
Okay,
But like I said, it wouldn't stop me from voting. If you said here it is, I'd say yes.
okay. Chris, I'm
Uh,
jumping around.
oh, sure. Yeah, I think Scott, if I take your point, it's drawing attention away from what this is actually about.
Yeah.
But I think probably the goal of this was just to sort of put this report in the same context as those other ones, as sort of major, you call them thought pieces on particular issues that rise above, you know, a simple, a more straightforward issue that we sent a letter on. This is a much broader topic.
Okay.
So it's sort of trying to contextualize the nature of this report.
That's exactly right. And I could do without it, but I wanted to put it in some kind of context.
I forget about what I said. Keep it in there.
Either way,
I agree with you guys.
what you,
But, actually, first, I forgot to say earlier, I just want to thank Greg for, like, I had like 1,000 hours of work. I don't know how many hours that this thing represents, but it's a lot for one person to, I mean, you sort of, I mean, gathered feedback from 1 million people, but he essentially created this thing almost on his own, and that's a monumental amount of work, and I just thank him for that. The tweak I would suggest is in that second paragraph where it says notably we have sent you reports, I would change that to notably we have sent the county reports. I think that's feels a little weirdly personal to use that pronoun that way. So again, it would not stop me from voting yes if we're not going to change it, but I think we should sand the edge of that down a little bit.
Kevin?
I have to say that, not being an expert on stormwater, I reached out to multiple community members to try to better understand the magnitude of this problem. And of the 4 community members, 3 really convinced me that this is of import, and even though something not felt by everybody directly, that it really did carry the weight that this report in general has. As it pertains to this letter, I'm actually really glad that this letter was read out loud, because I feel like the one edit that I would have would be to remove the word implementation. And I believe that is in is it towards the end? I'm sorry, I'm having a very hard time seeing even with my glasses.
5.
Yeah. I think that where you say we send this on for you to consider and implement, or there's 2 words that are used. And I think I take a little bit of issue with the MCC sending a letter asking the county to implement.
I don't see it.
It's in the very first sentence.
Oh,
And the only thing that I would say about that, and I have talked to Greg directly about this, is in the report, I did read the entire report twice, the latest revision and the prior reports, and there are the actionable items, Greg, that we had talked about, where it's pretty much the full enchilada with the cost that's associated for each of those recommendations. And I mentioned to you that I thought that this report could benefit from some kind of tiered system within that. If there were a baseline, a midline, and then as you have in your report, the full amount, targeting specific things that can be done that are maybe not as expensive as the full thing, but have some immediate impact, giving the county an opportunity to perhaps start with something smaller than a $1.6 million ask, a total of 16.4 or 20 million in total, might have been a good idea. I don't know at this phase if you were to change anything, if it would change the outcome of this letter being sent. I don't necessarily think it would have to, if it was just giving the county additional opportunities to look at pathways to address this as quickly as possible, but as their hands may be tied with budgetary issues, creating more opportunities for them to do something perhaps smaller, but something with some impact would be helpful. So that is what I would like to add to this.
would implementation, if you replace that with the word action or something like that, would that be better?
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a good point, because of the 3 that, were in favor of this, they said, it's very tiresome to see the MCC go through these exercises and then not get any response back. And I think the stronger language around requesting that the county, at least Ray, who we work closely with, let us know if there are reasons that they can't take action on this right away, or if there are reasons that it has to be pushed out in incremental degrees of time, so that our community knows that they have taken a look at it and they are trying to figure out what they can do. And if they have some timeline that they come up with for smaller items that we're able to report back to the community.
I'm not sure I follow that as the implementation.
What if we just inserted the words consideration of,
Consideration's good.
so consideration of implementation?
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I was just stressing the in consideration part.
Okay, so that would address that.
I mean, I think that it's fine. I think that if you could put in stronger language around requesting that if there are components or pieces of this that you feel you might be able to tackle or departments might be able to tackle, but not in its full capacity, we would appreciate transparent communication from county or whatever department is taking that on. I think that there could be opportunities for some of this to be acted on right away and in smaller amounts. And it would be nice to be able to report that back to the community at large.
You know, I think it's unrealistic to expect them to tell us all their thoughts about what they can do when, but I do think asking them for continued communication with us on their process is quite legitimate.
Okay,
Maybe we can find a way to put that in.
that would be great.
Okay, Kimberly.
So I'm a little confused. We're just talking about the letter, but are we gonna have room to talk about the report that we're actually sending? Because we haven't done that in any of our meetings yet.
We've talked about it a lot.
No.
Okay. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, in terms of the letter, I'm fine with what others have said and proposed. It sounds fine to me. Makes sense. I don't have any other things to say about the letter. But, and I agree. Thank you, Greg. It's an amazing effort, and it's a really, brings up some really important things that I think otherwise wouldn't have been surfaced. I spent a lot of time reading through this multiple times. And I'm sorry, I'm culpable here because I did not get you all of my comments in writing, although we talked on the phone. But I read through this again, and I think there are a couple sticking points for me that I would like corrected before we send this forward. One is that in several instances throughout the report, it sounds like it's coming from the MCC, and with this letter, it sounds like what we're saying is we're forwarding an individual's report that we fully support to the county, not our own report. And so I'd like to make that distinction in the report, because there are several passages where it says the MCC, thinks this, or the MCC would like to do, and it shouldn't say that. So maybe I'm being picky, but I think it's important. There were also a few things that I noted that are not correct factually, and I'd like to have those things corrected. I don't think these are big things, but I have a list. I could actually go through the report, but I don't think we want to do that. So I guess what I'm asking here is to make some corrections before we send it forward. If we don't want to do that, that's fine. I can't in all good conscience vote to send it forward, which is okay. But that's where I'm at with this. I think it's a great report. I think it still needs some tweaking. I don't want to draw it out, certainly. I have written these things into a document which I can circulate and share, but I recognize that I'm doing it at the 11th hour, and that's all I could muster. So there you go.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So there are some things you're saying that are they're incorrect factually, right?
Yes.
Does their incorrectness cause anything downstream that would lead to a false impression or anything like that? Are these inaccuracies consequential?
In some cases not, and in some cases maybe.
Okay.
I mean, the biggest consequence to me is that it impacts credibility. It impacts the credibility of the council. It impacts the credibility of the author. And so that I do think is important. So, you know, you can take that for what it's worth.
And send it tonight to all of us.
Sure.
I'd love to see it.
That means we have to do this another time.
Well, that's something we have to figure out.
Chris?
Go ahead. Well, I don't know.
Chris,
I saw you first, but did you, whichever.
Are we having a discussion here, or did I have my shot at discussion? And
I think at this point, we're experimenting with opening it up for people to chime in.
Well, so that's what I was asking at the beginning. Are we just discussing the letter? Are we discussing the report? I mean, the last meeting, we said we were gonna have any questions about the report, but we didn't. And so that's what I thought we were gonna do tonight.
Okay, so do people feel they want to comment on what Kimberly has brought up and talk about whether we need to go back into the report and revise the
Yes.
report some way? You both, I think we do. Okay, so go ahead, talk.
okay. So the other two large thought pieces that you mentioned, the telecommunications and
Lighting.
the lighting one, those were MCC products.
No, they were both products of somebody else that we adopted
Okay, and
sent on.
so are you, Kimberly, are you asking that we send this on in exactly that same way where we endorse it, we kind of sponsored it? It might be more of an MCC document if Greg was still on the MCC, it seems, but just by virtue of him having turned out, it seems like now it's his report and we're a sponsor or an endorser of it.
So in my mind, that was never clear, right? So this was Greg's own work, which I applaud him for. We never made that decision. And I think this letter, in my mind, clearly states, and by the way, this letter was a combined effort. It wasn't the drafting of one person. I think this letter makes clear that we're endorsing the report of an individual. If that's not what we want to do, if we want to adopt this report as a report coming from the MCC, that it's the MCC's report, I guess I think that's, in light of all the work Greg put into it, I mean, it is clearly his report. And I think he deserves all the credit for the report. So, you know, that's kind of my thinking on this.
Okay.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I will be very interested to see what your list of inaccuracies are, and I think it's important for information, technical information, to be presented accurately, and I think credibility is a good reason to do that. I don't want to diminish in any way the work that Greg has done, because obviously it's an enormous accomplishment. At the same time, I believe that what this report is a very thorough description of the issues and the issue areas and some specific actions that the people who are living with those issues have recommended to rectify those issues. And I think there's two possibilities for what the county will do with this. One is that they would look at that suite of issue areas and perhaps parse them into possible smaller capital improvement type projects if they decide that they individually rise to the level of importance and they can fit into whatever their program is, similar to what we've seen up on Ferdinand. There's a project up there that rose to the top. The other thing that could happen, and this has sort of been brought up in a number of different ways in the past, which is that the county could look at this, Public Works could look at this and say, okay, we need to do a comprehensive stormwater management plan. And this is a great first start because it lays out most of, again, what the issue areas are. And but what they would then do is they would hire a consultant, you know, a hydrology and engineering stormwater management consultant who would spend a couple of years probably analyzing the whole situation over, maybe, you know, using this as a very good reference piece, but they would engineer the solution and then subsequently parse it out into small projects that could be executed in a capital improvements kind of way. So in either scenario, I think the document going to the county is going to help prompt one or the other of those two pathways, which is what we want. And I'm on record of having early on advocating for peer review within, you know, of this document. I'm withdrawing that opinion. I don't think that there's time or benefit that would come from that, and I think that we should get it over to the county as soon as possible in its best form, but without delay.
I'm gonna make a quick comment about the letter that sort of addresses some of what you're saying. The one of the final lines is that not everyone may agree with all the points in this report. And there's things in here that I don't agree with, but I think the value of the report as a whole outweighs the fact that there may be things that people will say, I don't like that at all. Because the overall thing does provoke a lot of thought and it's a lot of work. Kevin.
Thank you. So I'm glad that you brought up from MCC. I've never, as a new council member, been given the opportunity to give specific feedback about this report, only ever asked to read it. And I have a fairly long list of suggestions, edits, or thoughts about the report that I read. And I did do my homework. I was asked to read it, and it may have taken me several days to get through the last one. And I did talk to Greg about some of these things. But I also felt that the way that the letter is framed, it says that it is coming from the MCC, and I don't agree with that. I do feel that the point that I was trying to bring up with you was I hate to think about this report like other things that have been kind of lost in the shuffle, not provide any feedback to the community that we are advocating for. So again, I would stress that if there's a way to infuse that component into this letter, I do strongly feel that, as Chris mentioned, the county does have a responsibility to basically redo all of this. If they were to look at something and want to act on something, they are required, I think, to bring on their own consultant and their own researchers and repeat all of the steps of this. So it made me feel more comfortable in saying yes to this letter, because all you're saying is we'd like for you to review this, and if there are items that you can take action on, please do so. But there were some real misses for me in this letter, and I also don't feel comfortable in saying yes to a consultant and allocating those funds.
We will need to make, right now, the position of the council is that we are willing to spend $3,000 for a peer review.
And
Excuse me, we may want to reconsider that, but let's just deal with the report right now, and then we'll come back to the peer review issue.
So then,
Okay.
I guess my final word is that I didn't feel comfortable, as is saying yes to the letter if what you were writing to go in front of it was to implement these things. I think the word implement is where I am sticking with. Like, I don't feel comfortable with the report as is to say implement this. And that be the official MCC recommendation.
Okay, so we could change that word. We discussed that. Okay.
I would just wanna put, with respect to today and our schedule, I'm looking at the clock, there's some time up there. If Kimberly wants to summarize her inaccuracies, and you can do it. And you don't wanna make it open-ended, you wanna just get it off your chest right now? Can you do it? And I'm looking at Claire because I'm saying I looked at the schedule, there's a window in there. And if you wanna get this out, and then Claire's okay with it,
Yeah,
then, and you think you can do it in a reasonable amount of time, why don't you just do it?
I mean, I'm not sure it's of value to everybody's time if nobody, if I'm the only one that feels this way, then.
Gus wanted to hear it.
Yeah, Gus wants to hear
um,
it.
I
There's
think,
some, like.
Non-factual.
I'm gonna say one more thing, if, when you say it's factual, say a blue car got washed down the street, it was actually white, I don't care. It's a car, it doesn't have any impact on moving forward. But if you say, see what I'm saying? And if those are the things we're talking about, no, I don't care about that. But if the important parts are true, then I'm fine with that. So, but I want you to be able to say what you want to say, and we have some time.
I think what's perplexing to me is that this is the kind of conversation I wanted to have about this report before, and we just haven't, for whatever reason, we haven't done that. So, I'm sort of agnostic. If you want me to point out some things, that's fine. If you want to proceed forward, I'm comfortable with what Chris laid out as well and what Kevin and Gus have said. So, I am a stickler, right? The details matter to me. And so I think what we're saying is those details don't necessarily matter in this case because it's the ultimate outcome that matters, which is true. So I'm okay to do with whatever you guys want to do.
Kimberly, can you pick maybe one or two things that you think we should possibly revise?
I think it would be important to change the parts where it says it makes the report sound like it's coming from us.
I thought we were talking about the report,
That
not the letter.
Yeah, the report.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
That the report makes it sound like it's an MCC report.
Kimberly, could I ask a quick question? If Claire were to add to this letter that when this letter was originally finalized, when the original content of this was finalized.
You mean report?
The report, yes, Greg was a member of the MCC, and so the language reflected in the report is indicative of that, but we acknowledge.
And the thing that's showing a microphone, we did feel comfortable with.
Sorry, if there was some way for you to state that, Claire, in the letter, would that help? That when this report was finished, it was coming from an MCC member. That MCC member is now a community member, and the MCC is asking that you review this as an individual.
Well, I think that was a question we raised initially, right? Earlier in that, is this report an MCC report or is this an individual's report? We never answered that question. So it's always been a question. Was this drafted as an MCC report or is it the report of one person that we endorse? And
What did you think, Greg?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to ask him that.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I wrote it as a member of the MCC. If I'd finished it sooner, I think it would have been appropriately worded as being a report of the MCC, but only if you guys agree with it. So I would just point out, if you're going to edit this report, though, it does become your report.
That's a good point. I think we never really voted to say this is our report, but you were working on it and we were aware of it.
Should we have a vote then to say that this is our report or not?
No, I think that was the purpose of this letter, is to get around that, so that we didn't have to say this is our report.
If it's Greg's report, it's easier for me to vote for sending it in as is because it's his.
Me too.
But that's the issue. I hate to beat a dead horse, but this report sounds like it's coming from the MCC. And the only reason that I was saying yes to this letter is it's just asking for a review. And if I got my ask of removing implementation.
It's gone, it's gone.
I understand, but let me finish my thought, please. Thank you. The issue at hand is it sounds like this is an MCC report, and it is not. This is Greg's report that community members contributed to, and if it's not going to be an edit in the report, because then it becomes an MCC report, it should be somewhere in this cover letter for consideration that at the time it was being written by an MCC member, but that is no longer the case, and this is the report of an individual, not an MCC member. I would not be in favor of endorsing this as an MCC report.
As was noted before, I did not necessarily write this letter. I contributed to this letter. Paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 try to get at what you were just saying, Kevin. And then perhaps it could be made clearer. But the 2 other reports that we shared with the county were not written by MCC people and were not MCC reports. They were things that we thought were valuable that we passed on.
I think if there's any way to highlight that further, that would be an acceptable solution for me at least.
Well, it does say the author, former MCC council member Greg Dieguez. So that's kind of clear. But
I think it needs to distinctly say this is not an MCC report, but this is a report of a member of the community.
Which the MCC endorses.
Which we are passing on because we think it has.
Which we're asking for review, not implementation.
We're shepherding it.
Yes.
Because we endorse this report. I think it should be very clear that we endorse this thing.
I don't know if I endorse it.
So, I feel as a MCC member that I've followed the evolution of this, because Greg presented a lot of this stuff along the road from beginning to end of this report. I may have started even before I was a member of the council. So I think kind of not in the details of how the report is written and how the words are typed out, but I feel like we were all part of the evolution of this report, because Greg presented to us all along the line, and we did discuss it a lot. But those are just my thoughts on whether or not it's an MCC report or a Greg's report. I felt like we were all part of it to some degree.
Because can you just define endorses so that
it means we broadly agree with the philosophy and the sort of overall direction that this report is.
I'm a new council member, so I don't have this context, and so it is valuable to hear some of these things kind of shaken out for me. And that to me sounds neutral and fine.
It doesn't mean everybody agrees with it. That's why that sentence is in there, but it doesn't mean that everybody agrees with every little thing that's in it. It's way too big and broad a report for everybody to possibly agree with every little detail that's in it. The idea is we agree that it is a big problem, like stormwater is a big problem on the coast that does impact significantly a lot of people who live here. That there are some very clear things that could be done, and we're highlighting this report. Greg is highlighting those things in this report, and we broadly agree that this is a good set of things to be highlighting to the county, because again, they're over on the other side of the hill. They're not going to know the particulars of our community the way that we do. So we're helping bubble that up to them so that the county can take effective action, because how could they know the individual particulars of every little neighborhood on the Midcoast?
But I guess I broadly agree, and I think what you said was important, that if this is the primer for action, and for them to, go through their processes and take action, then fine.
Yes, I think its primary function will be to be a spur that causes action. It's more so than here's like the prescriptive list of what you should do. More like, here's the universe of things you need to be concerned about. Here's kind of a good starting point for what could be done. Now you guys are the experts. Go and do your process and let's get started doing some things here to move the needle on this issue for the community.
Well, thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns, and with those changes made, I think it's probably a good idea to send it on.
I noticed that Burnett's had his hand up for a while. Is it okay if we ask him to comment?
Sure.
All right, go ahead,
Can
Burnett.
I also say that at some point Greg had asked in the chat whether there was opportunity for public comment on what we're discussing.
I think we're doing that right now, right? Alright.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay,
which- I don't know
Greg,
which
do you
letter he was
want
referring to. Go
to
ahead.
say, Greg, do you want to speak first, or do you have something to say? I can wait till after you, or I can go now.
I had a number of things to say, but I think the important thing is to move this along. What is it? The perfect is the enemy of the good. And I think it's important to bring these issues in front of the county, and the council just has to wrestle with the language to move this forward. That would be my preference. There are a couple of things that I would ask for follow-up on, including a peer review, but maybe this isn't the time to discuss that.
Are we voting on the peer review today?
Yes, I hope so.
Okay?
Okay, so, Burnett, did you want to say something else? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick statement that some of the things that Kimberly is bringing up, if a peer reviewer were reviewing this report, would point those things out. If there were some inconsistencies or errors. I would suggest, depending on your timing on this, I know we're late on getting it out, but how you want to do this, if you're not going to do the full-blown peer review, I know we're not discussing at the moment, but if you're not going to do that, I would suggest that Kimberly provide these comments to Greg. Greg make a decision if he's going to make the correction to the report or not, or he could provide a quick comment to each one of them as to why he doesn't think they need to be made. But if you're going to make it Greg's report, then it would be behoove him to make those decisions if there is an error or not. But if you feel you needed some additional clarification, if there are possible errors, but during a peer review, if you knew it was an error, you're going to point it out to the writer. Thank you.
do you want to respond to that?
No, I don't disagree.
I'm looking at the letter, and I don't, you can decide if this is the appropriate time for me to say this or not. But I'm looking at the things that people brought up to change. And what I have down here is in the first paragraph, taking out the word implementation and perhaps replacing it with something like consideration for action or something like that. I think we're leaving the second paragraph, but we're replacing you with the county. It'd be nice if we put something in here a little bit more explicitly thanking Greg. And then I put a sentence at the end that you may want to revise, but I'm saying we expect you to continue to communicate. We expect to continue in communication with you as you review this report and consider priorities for action. Are those most of the things that people wanted to changed?
Yeah, I mean,
That sounds
I'm
good.
good with that.
that sounds good.
Would somebody like to make a motion that we make those changes?
I move that we approve this amended letter.
I second that.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Is it a vote?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna vote on approving the cover letter for
As amended.
as amended. Chris,
Yes.
Gus,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
I'm a yes. And that's the 6 of us. So
And
approved.
we do have a current, as I said, our current position of the council is that we have approved $3,000 for a peer review. We have one bid for a peer review at $3,400. So we have to decide whether what we're gonna do about that.
So are you gonna go around?
Sure.
Okay.
You go ahead, you can start.
I had to ask county, and I did it in a general way. I didn't ask it about the stormwater report in particular, but what their process is if they are to take recommendations from either a community member, a council, a board, a group outside of the Board of Supervisors. And they're required to hire their own consultant. So making our request duplicitous almost, and if they were to take on any component of this, it would go through the steps that Chris mentioned likely, and they would also have to hire their own consultant. So I think it is redundant and not a very good use of our community's funds. So I would strike that. I would not endorse that.
I would like to hear what everybody else has to say about it. Especially Chris, because you had some good points earlier with respect to the consultant.
Kim, well, I was gonna go around.
However you want to do it. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I was an advocate of peer review. I thought it would help to strengthen the report. It really changed when we learned at a recent meeting that the report was already being read by county agency staff. And so it's sort of like, well, we kind of missed the opportunity. They already have it. They're going to look at it. They're going to look carefully at the very technical aspects of it. A peer review at the the dollar value that we were able to afford would have been a pretty high level. It would not have really gotten down into the details of how to design the solutions or anything like that. It would have just been, let's make sure that there aren't any egregious errors or assumptions. But having also read the report myself since then, I feel like even if there are some inaccuracies or something like that, I think the overall message is complete and strong and needs to be in the hands of people.
Without peer review.
Yeah, I'm comfortable without peer review at this point.
Okay.
Because isn't what you're inferring that like if the peer review would have happened prior to county starting to dissect this document, then it would have had some inherent benefit. But since they are already looking at it and probably parsing this out as, the weeks have gone on, that it's almost moot at this point.
That's my feeling.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we were having this conversation 2 to 3 months ago, I would still be pretty strongly advocating that we do the peer review, not so much because I thought the peer review would tell us a lot of important information per se, but more because it would communicate something about the level of seriousness with which we as a council were taking the report, that we would be willing to invest $3,400, which for us is a non-trivial investment. I think because we're having this conversation now, the timeline is I think the timeline outweighs that at this point. And I think we need to get this thing into the hands of the county with our blessing sooner rather than later. So on that basis, I would say, let's probably just go ahead and skip the peer review and just get this thing. We need to get this thing shipped.
I'm going to go ahead and make my comment. We approved this money at a time when our budget was in great peril. We thought that we were going to lose all the money that was in our bank. We would have no further access to spending any money under our own volition. And so we said, let's spend it. And so that was the context under which we thought we could afford it. That's changed. We do have discretion as to how we spend our money at this point. I talked with some people at the county who said that their major concern was that the other agencies that were relevant to stormwater on the coast were aware of this. And I think Greg has reached out to most of them, and that they've had an opportunity to contribute and that they are willing to continue to contribute. And I think that's true. So I really think at this point, we should move on.
Stop the peer review.
So can I motion that we vote on whether to spend the $3,000 on this?
I think Kimberly.
Oh, sorry, Kimberly.
I don't think I have anything to add. I mean, I think those are all good points. And I take your point, Chris, and Gus, that the timing now is such that maybe it would render some of these things moot. And so Yeah, I can't argue with that.
And it's a strong report. It doesn't need, well, in my opinion, it doesn't need somebody else to say it's a strong report. But we do have public comment before we vote.
Okay.
Brunette?
Yeah, sorry, just a couple of points. It's not unusual to release a draft report and then later release a final report. So even though it's out there, people are looking at that. That's not an unusual thing, just to give you a little background on that. As far as the peer review, basically what you're doing in the peer review, maybe somebody in there, or Greg can explain a little bit more, because I don't want to just bring my experience with peer reviews into this, but I have had quite a bit of experience with peer reviewing other departments' reports before they went out as an auditor. We wanted to make sure all the information was correct and so on. So, but really with the peer review in your particular case would be, you would be relying on the expertise of the consulting firm to bring their knowledge to the document that you may not have. If it's primarily an engineering document, you'd want some engineers to look at it and say, do your conclusions and your determinations make sense from what's written in the report, and are they supported? There is a timing issue. As you said, this thing has been a little late getting out, and I don't know how long the peer review is expected to take. And I don't know how much longer you guys want to hang on to it. I do recognize that. It does add value, because it means that somebody's looked at it that has more experience than most of the reviewers of these documents have, and have given you at least an understanding that, yes, it makes sense. I've read it. The things that you're doing, the approaches you're taking all make sense, or they'll give you some kind of feedback that, hey, there's an issue here or there. Or like Kimberly, if she found an error that they were aware of, they would have brought that forward as well. So there is value to it. Is it value that you want to expend right now? That's your determination, but it does have true value, adds weight to it, and you are basically purchasing the expertise of the individuals that are reviewing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg?
I wanted to say two things. One is, of course, the council has a number of good comments, and I'm happy with whatever you decide to do. But I want to tell you why the peer review is in there. It was partly to establish credibility, but a partner at an engineering firm I talked to about 1.5 years ago told me, quote, "San Mateo County has the worst stormwater management in the Bay Area," unquote. I didn't put that in the report, but my concern is we don't have competence or initiative or appropriate concern about the Midcoast in the county. And so I wanted to make drop dead sure that the conclusions were valid, assuming that the reportage from the field was accurate. Again, it's your decision, but I wanted you to appreciate the reputation of San Mateo County among professional engineers. And I heard this from several people with different languages. It's not good. So just be aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready for the vote? Was there a second on your motion?
I'll second it.
I thought you moved it too.
Yeah.
I second it.
Oh.
So what exactly is?
Yeah, could you repeat it, please?
So what I believe we're voting on is whether or not we're going to launch a peer review for $3,400.
I think the motion has to be either you have to commit to a side, and then we vote on which side. You know what I mean?
Okay. What?
Which side? Okay.
Oh, I understand what
Give
you're
me, like,
saying. If you say yes, then you're committing to spending the money. If you vote no, you're not committing to spending the money.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you're trying to clarify?
Yes, yeah.
Then let's
You gotta know
go with
which-
that.
Yes, what does yes mean and what does no mean?
I appreciate that. So,
Foolery in voting these days.
Yeah.
so I'm gonna say that one more time. If you say yes, you want to commit to 3,400. If you say no, you would prefer to pass on that. Chris?
No.
Okay. Gus?
No.
Okay. Claire?
No,
Kimberly?
Abstain.
Got it. Kevin?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna say no to that. And that's the 6 of us. So five to 1 abstain and 1 person not here, so we do have 5 on no vote for that.
passes.
So I believe where we stand now is we're going to rewrite this letter. I'm going to rewrite this letter and send it to the county with the stormwater report with we're sending it to you for you to, this is us endorsing and sending. And we're not going to get a peer review. And I think that's it, right?
Can I ask just a quick question? Would you normally edit this and send it to us in
No.
an email and say 24-hour review?
No, because we already voted on any changes.
Do we want to, Kimberly's going to give her list of things to Greg, who will decide for himself whether he wants to implement any of them.
Sounds like we're past that, so, I mean,
No, I mean, I think you should send your list. to
but do
Greg.
we have to vote on what version of the
Greg still
report?
wants to see it, regardless of what you do with it. I still want to see it.
Well, I'm comfortable, like, I'm sort of comfortable voting on shipping this thing with whatever changes Greg does or does not decide to make based on the list of
So-
things that you're going to give.
So you're saying we don't have to approve individual changes, we
Correct.
just,
As long as
approve
it's got, like,
the report.
I think the report is far enough along that with you're gonna give him 10 things and he'll approve like whatever, he'll make whatever fraction of those 10 he wants to make, and I'm fine with it, whatever he does with it, it's 10 things.
As Burnett said, like a different version can be
Right,
sent or
sure.
amended version.
Yes, and we can always later amend it or revise it or whatever. And
So I'd like to send this as soon as possible. When do you think? Greg, are you interested in looking at what Kimberly sends you and possibly making changes, and how would I know when it's done?
I think I could probably get to it in the next day or two. I think the process would be I would reply in detail to Kimberly's points and then leave it to the council to decide whether they wanted to edit and send an updated version of the report or what. I until I've seen the issues and you had a chance to see my reply, I don't think we can formulate what the next step would be.
So does that mean we wait for another 3 weeks to send it?
no, I would
Oh,
like to.
no,
would
I
like
think
to
you send it,
edit that
you send it
process.
like Burnett said, and you can amend it later.
Right. We're voting to say yes to the sending off of this letter with the amended cover letter, and then,
And the current report?
that's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Fair enough. Still send.
I mean, does it really matter? I mean,
Greg wants
It's
it.
an ongoing process.
If Greg wants it, and if there's some freak out, we can send the county, hey, on page 311, we found an error that we'd like to correct.
Because we are
I'd like to send
having
my
ongoing
comments to Greg.
communication.
yeah, but who's gonna go, I mean. it
Can I,
really
can I
doesn't
just,
matter.
suggest this as a process? Kimberly, send whatever your list is tonight. Greg, take a look at her list, and if you want to make any of the changes that are on there, make them, and then give Claire the report by Wednesday morning, and then what day is today's
Today's
Wednesday?
Wednesday.
I'm thinking today's Monday in my
You
head.
thinking maybe Friday?
Friday.
Yeah.
And then Friday, we send the thing in whatever form it is at that point.
And if I get this thing back and it says something really, really outrageous, then I guess we have an emergency meeting.
Yes, that's right. Does that work?
I don't know about the emergency meeting,
Yes.
but yeah.
Okay,
Okay, great.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. This was so much work. It is really worth it. I really do want to express all of our appreciation to everything that Greg
Thank
has
you,
done.
Greg.
Did we actually vote on proving it?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's-
I
We
don't
actually voted
have
on
that record, okay?
So
We,
no, we-
Well, yeah, I don't
We
think we did. We approved the letter
We
and we
Yes.
approved and
Okay.
voted on the,
Okay.
Okay,
peer
so
review, but we didn't actually vote to send the
to attach the,
report itself to the county.
would you like to make a motion to
I
that
would
effect?
like to move that we Friday morning send the current version of the report to the county with the amended cover letter.
And with whatever changes.
And that's why the current version, the version that will be current as of Friday morning.
Okay,
I'm gonna take roll. You guys ready? Oh, we need,
we need a second.
got a second?
Yep.
So Chris,
Yes.
Gus.
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Kimberly,
yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
I'm a yes, and that's 6 of us.
Awesome. Guys, did it.
First thing that was got done.
Oh, yeah. We got to yes.
Greg is watching us celebrate.
Okay, we have one more thing on the regular agenda, which is what we talked about when we pulled it from the consent agenda last week, which is support for legislation that will extend our ability to attend meetings remotely for certain reasons. And this actually was requested by Ray Mueller because he is going to advocate for this and he wanted to attach our letter to his. So Kimberly, go ahead.
Well, I think, so the letter, hopefully you've all read, and I think I also posted the actual language of the bill.
Yeah.
The bill obviously is moving, so some things have changed since we discussed this last. Essentially in this letter, there are two options for this letter. It can stand as is, because we're also suggesting that they consider changes to the amount of the number of absences allowed for council members for just cause or for circumstances related to childcare or caring for a family member. So I think that's where some people had concerns. So we could send the letter in support of AB 259 as it currently is, or we can include the language that says we would like them to consider those other add-ons.
What does it do if we want to consider the add-ons?
Well, my thought was that that's not going to be added to this bill at this point, I doubt. But what it does do is it sort of seeds it for somebody to make an amendment later to add these provisions somehow to, with other legislation possibly, or with renewal of this legislation. I think the problem is that the other two bills that were supposed to address advisory bodies, unfortunately, don't apply to elected advisory bodies. And so they don't really make a difference. We still have to conform to AB 2449 as it currently is. And so that won't really help us. And for this council, that's been a big deal. And, granted that does affect me personally. I'll just lay that out there. But we've had a significant number of council members over the years from this council, the previous council, and the council previous to that, who were caregivers or had childcare issues or, family illness. And I think it's an important thing to ask for. It doesn't mean it will go anywhere, but that's why we added that to the letter. So do people have thoughts on this?
I mean, it applies to me too, as my husband is elderly and dealing with medical things, and I'm doing the more surgeries needed for my eye. So yes.
I think it should be up to the council to decide if you've had too many unexcused absences. There shouldn't be a hard and fast number. And I would leave it up to.
Well, the problem with that is there's checks and balances, right? And so the Brown Act sort of limits the amount of council meetings that you can, that you would not be eligible to sit on the council if you miss a certain number of meetings. And so if you're not
Remotely or.
Well, the remote then is a different thing, right? Because remote attendance came after the Brown Act. And so AB 2449 allows remote attendance, but it only allows remote attendance. I think it's 2 absences per annual, and then up to 5 absences or attendances remotely, not absences, with the permission of the council. So that's why after 2 absences, we then vote on the person to be able to attend remotely.
And was there some component, did I read some component about attending remotely, limiting an individual's ability to vote?
Right. So you can attend remotely and be a non-voting member, which means you're just attending as a member of the public, right?
Right.
You're not part of the discussion as a formal council member. Then the council can vote then to allow you to be a voting member, And you can do that up to 5 times. And that's my understanding of it.
Okay, because I read that and I needed clarity on that specific part.
There is a little glitch, and I think I changed it in this version that's currently posted of the letter, in that I think I suggested up to a third of the meetings annually. And so for a body that meets twice a month, that,
That's 24 meetings, 6 meetings.
no, a third of the meetings is, I think it's 8 meetings. But for a body that only meets once a month, a third is actually less than the 5 they're already allocated. So that doesn't quite work for all bodies. So I don't know how to resolve that exactly, but that's just one little glitch. I think I might have changed the language that way. But are there thoughts on this? Is it a bad idea? Do we not want to include it? Do we just want to just straight out support AB 2449 and keep going as it is?
I'm fine with the letter as it is written, with the exception of one comment that shouldn't be there.
What's that?
There's
The comma.
there's an extra comment that shouldn't be there.
That's easy.
It irks me, but the content of the letter
I'm
is
with
great.
you. Other comments, Chris? You look like you might have something to say.
I'm opposed to the limitation of any kind to remote attendance, so that's where I stand. I think it unnecessarily limits people who have reasons that are not included within the set of special circumstances, but that may be entirely legitimate and valid reasons, and that to include them or force them to reveal what their particular circumstances are is unnecessary. So I'm opposed.
Didn't we get an opinion from Tim Fox saying that we had to have some sort of limitations? I think we,
Yeah.
No, I understand.
but you just wish we didn't, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's contrary to
Your belief.
my belief about what
Okay.
should be allowed and not allowed.
Yeah.
And I think I just said what mine were, as I'm looking at multiple surgeries, both for myself and for my husband, which falls into that line of reasoning. You know, I think if it's a justifiable reason and you know, it's within what the council is allowed to do, then I'm for it. I mean, I don't want to be in a situation where I am violating, you know, the rules and the parameters laid out and not able to vote when I can do so remotely. I don't know if I can physically be here for some of the meetings in the coming months.
And you know, we also, with my own experience, and I think some of us during the pandemic was, you know, in some cases, we just attended when there was a quorum in the room. If you had to attend remotely, then we attended as a public member and we weren't recognized as a voting member. And that was fine if we didn't have decisions to make. So, you know, you can do it that way. The whole problem is that the Brown Act limitations are there for a reason, right? They want to make sure that the deliberative process is a fair and open process, and that there's nothing that interferes with that to, you know, have things happen that behind the scenes that the public wouldn't see. And so it's a line that you have to walk to ensure that you're living up to that responsibility. And so, you know, I don't know how you work that out, but I'm with Chris in that having remote attendance, I think we've proven that it works, not just us, but all bodies in the county and across the state. But at the same time, there's still hesitancy to open it up to more flexibility. So I think we have to keep pushing for it.
I think I like what you said about that um, thank you for a second, that we're volunteers, we're unpaid. It's sometimes difficult to get a cross-section of the community to be able to come to these things in person. And it makes it more attractive to serve on the council if there's more flexibility.
And I know I put childcare and caregiving. Are there other, and I think I put illness, but are there other things
I
that you
think
can?
the caring for a loved one is really, if that's not included, is important. Whether it be for a spouse or a partner, however you want to define that, as loosely as you can define that so that it's covered. I mean, I'm for it, but I think that there needs to be a justifiable reason. I think that I shouldn't just be able to say, Claire, I'm not coming to the meeting, but I'll be remotely attending. I think that I should be able to provide my chair and vice chair a reason as to why I'm not coming. And if the public asks, do you have that reason? You know, caring for a loved one is up there for me.
And I like that we're here together in this room, but I don't. And if it's not being able to do it remotely is a motivation. I don't like that, but I do like that we're here now together.
So,
And I don't like limitations on not being. I don't want there to be a limitation. I don't know how to write that. And I don't wanna make a red flag saying, watch them, they won't wanna be there. I'd rather just not count it, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So. But I do like, I just wanna make sure you know that I like being here in person. And if I'm the only person here in person, I'm fine with that too.
no, I like that too.
So, I like it.
Well, as the law now stands, you have to have a quorum in the room, no matter
Okay.
what. So
All right.
I don't think that's gonna change anytime soon, no matter
Isn't
what.
there
we ask
also-
for.
I just, the other consideration is for a voting non-attendance, but remotely. Isn't there consideration like if you're within the district
No,
itself?
that's not us.
That's, okay.
We do have a couple of public comments.
I see Greg.
Great, isn't it? Oh, yeah.
Am I
So-
recognized?
Do we, want-
Let her rip.
So I just wanted to give you a little background. This came about 2 years or more ago. I worked with Senator Becker's aide. Senator Rubio had an early version of this bill. My point to Senator Becker was it's an elected advisory board. It has no budgetary or lawmaking authority and therefore should not be subject to the in-person attendance requirements of the Brown Act. That he agreed. His aide told me they agreed and they were going to work with Senator Rubio on the bill. Now, 2 years later, slightly different version of the bill has come out. I think it is worth mentioning in the letter from the council that you're an elected advisory board, and that's the exception you want, is for advisory boards. So that's my comment.
I actually did mention that to someone who I can't remember now at one of the legislative offices. And the person said, well, there are these two other bills. I think it's SB 239. I'm going to get this wrong. SB 239 and SB 707, which are aimed at advisory boards. But their advisory boards that they're aimed at are not elected advisory boards. So that's the rub right there, is that if you're elected, you have to follow the Brown Act in all of its provisions.
Not if we change the law.
That's what we're making steps in that direction.
Okay, Burnett?
Okay, I was looking at it, had I think you were saying you had a conflict with using the phrasing of 1/3 of the meetings per year because it didn't have the 5.
Yeah,
If you wanted to, language, you may want to try as special circumstances up to the greater of 5 or 1/3 of the meetings per year. That would include 5, or if it's greater than 5, then the 1/3 would kick in. You might think about that. Thanks.
That's great language. Thank you, Burnett.
Are we ready to vote on this?
So,
But with edits, right? Vote with the edits?
What?
What are we voting on exactly?
the letter with the edits.
Letter with the edits?
Do we have a motion on the table?
I vote that we make a vote for the letter as we just edited it, correct, Kimberly? Made those changes?
So by edits, you mean to approve the letter with the language that Burnett Silvera just suggested? The greater of 5 or 1/3 of or 1/3 of meetings.
And then was there any qualification around the exact reasons? Illness, in taking care of a loved one, a child?
So in the letter right now, should we put it on screen? In the letter right now, it says illness, childcare, and caregiving.
I think that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Is there a second?
I'll second one. So, are you guys ready to vote?
And unless there's any further discussion?
He's got
Yes.
to go insert me.
No.
So here, the letter now is on screen.
Okay,
I can't read it, so unless someone's gonna read it.
Take our word for it.
Yes.
I just assumed everybody had read it before they came.
yeah, I saw
I,
that.
I read it before we came.
Okay.
And I was fine with it. Those
Okay.
edits.
Is there anything else that we need to discuss before the vote? Oh, and with Gus's comma removed or inserted, I forgot
Comma
which.
Removed the
Removed,
one after the grammar.
Just between the word needs and that.
okay.
Okay, so we're about to vote to approve the letter for Bill 259. It's 259 with edits. Chris?
Abstain.
Okay. Gus?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes,
Kevin?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And so that's 5 yeses and 1 abstain for approving of sending the letter.
Okay, council activity.
I attended the last GCSD meeting and did mention to the board per your suggestion, Claire, that they consider potential future dates to come give an update on the survey that they completed and what their next steps would be. I didn't get a formal response, only that they would consider it and let me know.
Actually, I did get an email from somebody from there saying that they wanted to come sometime in the summer.
I didn't get a formal response in terms of when, so.
No, that's fine. You don't need to. Thank you.
Just a reminder that tomorrow morning we will be doing a walk audit for Farallon View Elementary. It starts at 7:15. If anybody also, anybody's welcome to join it. We're gonna be walking the neighborhood and noting, you know, where it looks like safety needs to be improved. As kind of the first step toward getting some projects going with the county to improve safety and get more families feeling comfortable having their kids walk or bike to school instead of driving. And it's a kind of a complicated area. It's the primary way toward the school is also the primary way everybody drives out of that neighborhood to get into the rest of the world. So so we're doing that tomorrow morning
Where are you starting and then where are you starting?
at the school. So
Oh, okay.
we're meeting at the school at 7:15.
Okay.
If you're interested, just text me and I'll.
I didn't get a chance to add this piece. Michelle Dragony asked if I would request from Ray the use of his coastal space for a memorial on the 31st of next month for Lisa Ketchum, and that was approved. I am not part of the organizing of the memorial, and I think Chris is trying to coordinate Michelle's efforts with one of Lisa's very close personal friends so that they're not duplicating efforts.
Chris,
Ruben Driftmaker, keep his identity.
oh. Chris Judson.
Yes.
I got one more. Sorry. And also I have begun the process of having conversations with the fire service community on fire readiness here on the coast with a particular scenario of the hills catching on fire, as we have seen happen behind and Pacific Palisades. I will tell you, it's going to be a lot of like informal conversations with people before I'm ever going to be ready to bring something tangible here, because it's surprisingly nuanced political discussion to talk about any of that stuff. And so it just requires a lot of off the record conversations with a lot of different people first before you sort of bubble up something that's actually actionable.
Is
I'm
there,
surprised you're surprised.
is there any community input on that right now? Is it? No.
This is the background.
Okay, this is a real political stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're talking about fire safe community and zone 0 and all that.
We talked actually some about concerns, a bit more just like how ready is the coast to handle it?
So let me give you one. So after the meeting, I rode my bike all over our community. Zone 0 needs a lot of work around here. There are so many houses, there are trees.
From a hardening perspective.
From a hardening perspective, so.
We were talking more about just like what's kind of the water situation, what's the ingress egress situation in various parts of it, like that kind of stuff, more than the hardening, which is also obviously very real. But this was more from their perspective as the fire service and what they need to do. Like hardening is what we need to do as residents, but this is more from what they need for them to do their own job. Yes.
So was this stemming out of the hydrant thing that?
Yeah, the
Okay.
hydrants were kind of the
is
thing
one
that
piece?
prompted the discussion, but the discussion became a very wide-ranging discussion beyond hydrants.
So when you're ready to do anything with that, just. let us
Yes.
know.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's been on the thing there for future agendas for a while. I just wanted to let you know I've actually started to make some progress on it. Really all I wanted to say.
And you know, part of the thing that's keeping coastside from opening up is because they have no fire hydrant. Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that. In the water.
Yeah.
And then there's one last item is the task force that you are assigned us to at our retreat. Scott, myself, and Connie for community outreach and information dissemination. We are planning our first formal meeting for when Connie gets back. We'll put something on the calendar and we'll be making regular updates.
What is this that you're doing?
This is the information dissemination and outreach into the community, like how to do better outreach that was discussed in our retreat.
Oh, you don't have a specific project right now. You're gonna be talking about making a
For the first
specific.
time, and then we're
Okay.
gonna prioritize, and then we'll make regular reports.
Cool. Well, speaking of that, if we can move into future agendas briefly, or at least however long it takes. We do have 2 things already scheduled for next week. It's 3 weeks from now, we get a break. We have Ox Mountain coming to talk to us about what they do and which came out of our planning referral, but that's passed, but they're still gonna come talk to us. And we have DPW coming to talk about El Granada and Steel Cove. And one of our outreach projects is our newsletter. And we're due to put out another newsletter, so you might want to be thinking what should be in the newsletter.
So I've already started looking at the past newsletters, and I have kind of formatted something that we can put stuff in. And I have the tools to be able to do that.
That would be great, except that that's Gus's job. He might want to negotiate it.
Well, I thought we talked about him doing the editing of the actual language and me doing the placement and photos, stuff like that.
Zero talent for layout, like.
Oh, okay.
That's
So
the part
that's-
that I was.
So it's good as a team.
Yes, I totally knew he was gonna be on the edits. He was gonna remove those commas and.
I was looking at some piece of email I got from somebody today, and at the bottom of the email, like a standard thing, says, sign up here to get our newsletter. I thought that was a good idea. Maybe we could look into doing that. Okay, so we have this other big list of things. I think we probably have almost enough for next week, next meeting, but
So I wanted to bring up something. I, there was a community member that sent us an email this week about Seton. And I was gonna bring it up anyway because I run on that trail back there that comes out behind Seton. Seton has done some, what I consider egregious, actions they've taken down a lot of trees, they've spread a whole lot of chipped wood on the slope, which is probably gonna open things up to erosion and other problems.
Cues that they point out lines to use from a balcony.
Well, it's also opened up remember I brought up the lighting that they installed earlier last year? This now opens up the lighting and it's shining directly into the neighbors across and below, because the trees shielded it before. There's lots of other environmentally questionable things that they've done on site without any notification that I could find. So I guess I'm wondering, should we have some conversation about this? Because people in Moss Beach in that neighborhood are very upset right now.
It's already done though. The trees are
Well, I
down.
think this is the problem, right? This has been raised a few times and we've sort of looked the other way because Seton, we want that urgent care. And do we want that urgent care at the cost of, that they get to do whatever they want to do as they put this building up? I mean, where's the line?
How can they not be subject to the planning committee?
they're not because
not.
because they're under state licensure. And it's the state,
Okay.
there's a state hospital commission that does all of their planning approvals.
Okay.
Yeah, so
But the trees may be a different story.
it's very likely too. There are nesting owls in that area. They have been there for a long time. The owls just fledged. Well, there's young owls around now, so they probably have all fledged, but I'm very sure that they probably took out, nesting spots.
Would you
So-
like to try to get them on the next agenda? Do we have room for that?
Well, my question is, who would we talk to at this point?
I've
Is
got-
this Seton? Is this,
Oh.
is this somebody else with the county? Is this somebody with the state? Who are the people?
I think getting Seton here would be the first place to start.
Claire,
Yeah.
can with DPW on the next agenda, I have personally found it very difficult to have presentations from presenters where just by the nature of who they are, it's going to spark a lot of public comments and questions from this council and perhaps actionable items. And I find it really difficult to pack an agenda when you have somebody like that presenting and then giving us a real valuable amount of time to kind of dissect, ask questions and engage with these presenters. And I know that was echoed by Connie, and I think you, Scott, at the last meeting. I just wonder if I actually think you have too much on our next agenda to be able to have some very valuable and needed conversations around some of these presenters.
I actually wrote to Seton and asked them what the heck they were doing, and they didn't answer me, but I can try it again. I know that Connie said that she wished we only had one item on each agenda. That we've cut back a whole lot in order to get through by 9:30. We used to do a lot more than this. But I see it both ways.
So like when Timothy was presenting, a lot of questions were cut short and a lot of, there were a couple of people mentioned to me after the meeting that they felt like they were unable to ask the questions that they wanted to ask and how should they handle that. So just a consideration as well.
Yeah, it's a judgment call for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I personally felt like I wanted to have more time with Timothy when he was presenting.
I think with regard to Seton, there needs to be some fact finding about what they have done and what's the basis for what they've done as far as any environmental review. So Claire, they may not be subject to county planning commission, but they're not exempt from state law, they're not exempt from SEQA, they're not exempt from all of those things. It's just probably processed in a different way than the typical county planning project.
So we have no direct access to that process. That's the difference.
Yeah.
But they should explain themselves to us.
Yes.
At one point, they thought we had to approve everything they did, and I should have left them have that idea.
That would make it easier to get a response.
Well, I think there is some responsibility to the community that they operate in, no matter whether their process is governed by the state or not. And all of these documents, including the CEQA process, are public. That is public information filed away somewhere that should be accessible.
They clearly may think differently. That's all. I mean, I think Claire needs to do some investigative work to figure that out.
I'm willing to get a little more aggressive and try to find something out and report back.
I think one critical question for me is how far is the county willing to look the other way to get that urgent care?
It's not urgent care. That's not even the big issue right now,
Okay,
because it's probably not going to be there.
okay,
It's mostly the skilled nursing, and the county's interest is in the emergency room. And they're probably going to have lab and x-ray that people can just walk in and use, which will be nice.
Yeah.
But urgent care is not the driving force.
so I'm all for fact finding, and then I think, we should also discuss the possibility of a letter to Seton about these problems.
Which we could do even if we don't know the facts.
Well, I'd like them to be based on facts.
Well, the light compliance is something that you bring up that I wonder if we need to kind of urge some intervention by the county to address that with Seton. Because they're working on this project pretty closely.
It would be really helpful if we had a dark skies ordinance for the Midcoast, which we probably should get back to, because we have, as I mentioned in this other letter, we have the lighting and we have the telecommunications, which are things we've advocated for. And we probably should make some effort in our future agendas to follow up on those things and get them codified a little bit more, so that we do have a leg to stand on when we'll do stuff like this.
Yeah, I said at the very beginning, I think that those things where you guys have made conclusive summations and they are kind of standing for permitting, especially as you guys are working on building permits, that it should be summarized and put up on our site as a community toolkit, or as whether a commercial entity or a private person utilizes it. I think that would be useful information.
But then we get back into what you were saying before, which is we've got a bunch of things that actually are priorities. I'd like to get some Firewise stuff on here a little bit more actively. There's Connie's interested in more emergency things, and there's a lot of stuff that's important. And if we're only going to do 1 or 2 items per meeting, we're never going to get to them.
Well, the big difference would be presenters versus stuff like you're talking about. So if we were to revisit something and create some actionable items to then kind of formalize a process, that's something that I think would be less intensive than a presenter who is going to speak to this council and the public and probably have far more questions than us, like looking at past business and trying to move forward and formalize a set of parameters for the community to use. So I mean, it could be a good balance, between presenters to have, one piece of that and a presenter. Again, just a suggestion.
Yeah, well, it's something to keep an eye on and see if we can ever reach the perfect balance. We can try. Anything else, or should we adjourn?
Yeah, sure. I move we adjourn.
We're gonna adjourn.
In Lisa's name.
Yes, in Lisa's name.
All right.